Hi, team. So I want to ask you a couple of questions about your work on your student-made film. So the first question is, what did you find most fun about this project?
We have a scene in the film that's pretty funny that I think will get some laughs, and we had a lot of fun filming it for sure. We were cracking up ourselves as we were filming it.
So an opportunity to have a little bit of humor. So what was the most challenging aspect of this?
I would say scheduling. A lot of us have jobs and other classes, and trying to find times that we could all get together was really, really tough.
And the whole improv of everything was a little challenging too.
Yeah. So how are you feeling right now before the film festival?
Excited?
Yeah, we're excited.
A little nervous.
Nervous too. Yeah.
Nervous and excited. Well, thank you, team, that you're doing. So what did you find the most fun about this?
I thought the writing process was fun. We all seemed to be able to give ideas and take ideas away without anybody being, hurt or upset. And I think we all kind of agreed on our creativity was kind of on the same page. That was fun.
Definitely. The acting, I would say, was really fun. Seeing everyone mistake their lines and having to do it over and just improvising and, turning out that, it was a great shot at the end. So that was really fun.
And getting to finally see it all come together was like part of the great part of it.
I think working together was also fun. Just we all had like some of the similar attitudes, personalities, so it all worked and clicked together.
It was probably one of the easier group projects. I considered how much went into it, how much time outside of class we did.
Yeah.
It was we all got along real well.
Yeah. So what was the most challenging aspect of doing this?
And then deciding what to cut out and what to edit was kind of a nightmare because we did overshoot and a lot of good things did get cut out, but hopefully it's pretty good still.
Yeah. So how are you feeling right now?
A little nervous.
I'm shaking.
Nervous?
Yeah.
It's
terrible.
Excited.
Yeah. Nervous
Glad that
energy,
it's over.
excitement. Yeah. Well, very good. Thank you, team, and good luck. So, team, what did you enjoy the most about this process?
I think we all enjoyed the filming process pretty much.
Absolutely, yeah. The filming was the best part.
What did you find the most challenging aspect of this?
Probably putting all of our really creative ideas together and cutting down so it fits within the time frame that we needed to, because there were just so many wonderful ideas that we all had and came up with, and we wanted to do everything, but there isn't enough time.
So how are you feeling right now?
Nervous.
But also very excited to see.
I've never seen our movie.
Yeah.
So today,
Yeah.
today will be my first viewing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, thank you, team.
Thank you.
All right, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Steve McKay. I'm executive producer at Creative Services. It's my unit studio that you are in, and we are so happy to support Professor Ischelik's endeavor and the 8th annual CBA Film Festival. And I want to welcome the College of Business Dean Cordero, and all of you to our studio. And we are eager to get started in just a moment here, but I'm sure you're going to have a wonderful time, and we look forward to continued support of the college and all its endeavors. So, Professor Ischelik.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 8th annual CBA Film Festival. It's been 8 years, quite incredible. 43 film projects presented to more than 1,000 people. And today I would like to talk a little bit about the factors that helped this project flourish over the years, because there are so many people who are involved. And I also would like to highlight the good news about this project, and then a little bit talk about what we are doing here, especially for our new audience. I know we have a fan club. People keep coming every year. I see a lot of similar familiar faces in the room, and yet just to give some background information, also for our recording purposes, because for the first time ever, this part will be recorded. And I will talk about some continuous improvement efforts that we have been engaged in for future years, subsequent steps, and also tell a little bit about this year's film projects. First of all, this project wouldn't have been possible without a myriad people who have been continually supporting this for close to a decade. Corinne Matos and her team from IRT, Student Technological Service, artistic and academic synergy with Ms. Elizabeth Naziaro, who cannot be here today, my longtime collaborator since the beginning of this project. Even the studio design that we have come up with today started with her suggestions and ideas. Mr. Francois Baptiste, you'll be knowing him soon in our panel and commentary, and Professor Mandy O'Neill. A lot of synergy between artists and scientists, which is quite exceptional. And then the administrative support, our Dean, Bill Cordiero, and then Mr. Doug Evans, Ms. Angela Park-Girard, and Ms. Heather Lutero, who have been continually supporting with all the things, all the background work that we've been doing for this project. And the last but not the least, creative services team, Steve McKay, Jeff Medlicott, Jose Mungia, and Susan Pikowski, who are my great friends. Because this event this year wouldn't have been possible without their generous support, not only support, just being a collaborator in this whole process. And of course, our great jury panel, I'm not going to read all the names, but it's in the program and it's going to be in the credits. But we got a great jury panel from diverse backgrounds, administrative and also academic. And also in the academic, we got different professors from different backgrounds. They're going to be scoring the films to choose the best film. The award is there. And the winning team will get that award for a few minutes for their picture taken, and I'll get it back and put it in my office. It's like a trophy, changing hands. And of course, our stars. This project wouldn't have been possible without our students, because our students are so courageous and smart that since the beginning of this journey, they've trusted me, and they have taken the journey with me every year, and every year I'm getting more comfortable. But I will always remember in my career those scare eyes in the first day of class. Okay, you'll be producing film in this class. What? And then I'll go over the syllabus as if it's something normal. And then they gradually take it normal, though. They start taking it for granted because they are open to experience. We've got extremely creative students who can do great jobs once their courses are their top priority. And I know their agendas are very busy. So I try to make sure that our course is the top of their agenda so that they can put in the effort. So I want to give you a great news about this project. CSU system has started an inaugural award this year to recognize faculty and activities that support student success. And this year, the first time when the call went out, 366 nominations were made. And then 26 award recipients were selected across 23 CSU campuses. And primarily because of the CBA Annual Film Festival project, we have received one of these awards. I don't want to say I, it's just we. So I just want to get a big applause from everybody. And this is literally the biggest award I've received. It's heavy, it's huge. I don't know how many pounds that is, but that was handcrafted by a professor from CSU Fullerton and our students, art students, artwork. There's a lot of art into it. And I was in San Diego to receive the award from our Chancellor Timothy White, who was very interested in our project. And everybody who was in the event were very interested in the project. Not only that, out of these 26 projects, our project was selected in the first 5. And I was the first one to interview with in a podcast in Teaching in Higher Ed, which is going to go out to the world. They are highlighting faculty efforts for pedagogical design and improving student success. Okay. So how does this project come together? There are a couple of components of this project that magically brings a lot of other things together. The power of theory, the power of films, the power of festival, and more recently, our continuous improvement effort, the power of studio. Whenever we spell out the word theory, a lot of the times it's a turnoff for people who are not in the academia. When we say theory, it's too abstract, too boring, too complicated. However, it is not. Theory is one of the best things in life because theories help us predict the future. And this is human obsession since beginning of humankind. We want to be able to predict the future. So theories in social science help us predict what might happen next, and that's a huge power. In that sense, there is nothing so practical as a good theory. Good theories help us recognize patterns, make predictions, see relationships, and improve our practices. The second pillar of this project is the power of films. Albert Einstein once has stated, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. Once we start imagining possibilities, that changes our world, that changes our reality. And that's what happens in those film projects that we'll be watching today. Because filmmaking helps triggering students' imagination about the theory that they read from the book. But not only that, because of writing the script and enacting a character and building the relationships, it little bit forces them and then drives them to reverse engineer the theories. So what we'll see today is a lot of these dirty, juicy stories behind those theories that we have developed, because when we develop theories, we go out to the field, we get all that raw data, and then we come up with this beautiful, clean model, which is rarely the case. So what our students do today is doing the opposite. The power of festival, the continuity, it's a word from Latin, means happy, one of my favorite words. It's a periodic celebration. Transforming this whole thing into a festival helped us push the boundaries of our classroom and include other students, faculty, executives, employees, alumni, come together every year to celebrate knowledge, to celebrate life in a way. And the power of studio, it's a word that's driven from Latin again, to study, pursue, eagerly be eager for. They've literally created a studio in our classroom, as I'll be talking in a minute. And we create a workspace where we spend the full semester putting out something to the world that's going to be recorded today and that's going to be put out to the website soon. And what happened this year, though, thanks to all the campus closures, we were about to cancel this event. And I was done with everything 2 minutes before I got the email that the campus will be closed the next day. It was funny, though. My response was, oh, we are postponing the event. It didn't even cross my mind that we'll be canceling this event. And of course, there was this 2 week of frustrations just waiting because the campus was closed, creating a lot of contingency plans. But on Monday, thanks to, again, a lot of support, we made this a reality, but thanks to the creative studios, because as you know, if you are organizing events on this campus, getting a room is one of the most challenging things on this campus. And so they opened their studio to us. And not only that, we are now turning a crisis situation into an opportunity, because for quite some time, Elizabeth Nanziado, Steve McKay, and I have been talking about creating some studio design events. And that was along the lines of for some other projects that we've been working on. So we just are doing it sooner than we have been thinking and even could have imagined. So in the future, we'll continue improving the studio design, so maybe we can have our subsequent events in this room. And also we got these films from our repertoire that we can bring together, so also we can invite our alumni, so have our film festival projects based on the films that were produced in the past 8 years. We've got our great project called CBA Organizational Wisdom Studio, where we are analyzing important topics by using an interdisciplinary lens. Last year we did our first event, debut event, focusing on anger. And probably in the spring or in the fall semester, the latest, we will have another interdisciplinary focus on, this time on studentship. What does it mean to be a student in the 21st century? And what it means to be a Sac State student. And we will analyze that from an interdisciplinary lens. And it'll probably be in this room with a great group of panel and with students and all the rest of the stakeholders on campus. Today's film projects focus on some empathic moments, and where leaders build effective connections with their followers, and then they integrate comedy with drama. There's a lot of dramatic influence. I raise the bar every year, and this year I think I raised it a little bit too far, so I can comfortably tell my students now, because our focus is about a topic that's quite subtle, loneliness. Unlike other emotions like anger that's so expressive, loneliness is a lot more subtle emotional state to be in. So I was really curious how the stories were going to come out, and we'll see in a minute. But as you would see in your programs, each team were given a theoretical problem, such as how can creating an empathic relationship enable a leader to better utilize the path-goal theory of leadership to help organizational members moving from loneliness to courage. So to be able to address that, our students first held their sessions, they explored workplace loneliness concepts, and then they did their emotional intelligence workshops to improve some interpersonal skills. Elizabeth Naziaro and Francois, we got not only one, but 2 actors coming in this year to campus to train our students with acting, which I think is going to be reflected in the projects. And then you got the film writing process, and then you got the film editing process. Now, rewinding back a little bit, why loneliness? Because loneliness is becoming a very common word that we are hearing over and over again in the media. And recently, U.S. former Surgeon General Murthy has declared that it is a health epidemic that needs treatment. We got an amazing number of people who feel lonely in social life. Not only on this part of the world. In the UK, this year, Theresa May has announced that now they are having a ministry of loneliness. And their first year report came out with some striking findings about how lonely people feel in the overall society. And more recently, my beloved co-author Sigal Barsait, who has been in these events as virtual commentators in the past, and I literally this week, it might be today or tomorrow, it's going to be in print. We have an article coming out in Academy of Management Journal that actually shows that performance is strongly related to workplace loneliness. And from there, now, enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, we're the Five Amigos, and today we're going to be watching a film about Phoenix, our protagonist, who is a corporate drone, but finds herself very out of place in the culture of a startup company. And as a result, she starts to feel really lonely until her manager intervenes. Using the path goal theory, he shows her how to be courageous. Thanks, and we really hope that you enjoy your film, and have a great night.
Good morning, my name is Phoenix Jones. I'm new here. Can you please direct me to the closest new orientation?
Welcome in, Phoenix. We were expecting you. I'm Star.
Nice to meet you, Star.
Nice to meet you. I like to think of myself as a spiritual vanguard around here. So if you're feeling a little bit lost, just come see me. We can have a little biscuit, maybe a little bit of coffee or something on the side.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. We're a little bit more laid back here, as you can see. As long as you get things done, we don't mind what time you come in. But anyway, boss man asked me to give you this.
Wonderful.
All right, well, and also here's a kombucha to energize your soul and cleanse your insides.
Thank you.
Hey, morning, Star. Oh, hey, Phoenix.
Hi, good morning,
Yeah.
Mr. Blue.
Hey, that's fine. Here, let me just, I'll just get this one.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good having you on board. How's traffic?
It is okay, thank you.
Yeah, not too bad?
Not too bad.
All right, perfect. Here, why don't you just follow me? I'll get you situated.
Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. How about this one?
Yeah, this looks great.
Yeah, just get yourself settled in. Yeah, so I see Star gave you the report, the budget. It's quite the report, so you really have your work cut out for you.
Sounds good.
Rest of the tax should be in later today. I will leave you to it.
Perfect. I look forward to meeting you.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'll see you around.
I'm surprised at how much work I have to do, especially on the first day. I was expecting some sort of onboarding or orientation, but yeah, it's different and it's gonna take some time getting used to. For one, I like coffee and I still don't know what kombucha is, but I'm sure I'll grow to like it.
And I really hate it when no one hears me out.
Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll get it done.
Anna, man, he gets a pickle every time he really crunches those numbers. Man, but yeah, as a manager, what I've noticed is that everybody has their own distinct personalities and really just have to cater to their needs to really bring out the best in them.
Have you seen this meme?
What's a meme?
Are you kidding me? Well, anyways, so later we're gonna be going over to lunch, you know, the girls and the boys and the panda. If you wanna join us over in the break room later, you can.
Yes, I'll grab my lunch. Thank you, Carmen.
All right.
Oh, hey, ladies, so glad you can join us in refilling our minds and bodies.
Thank you for having me, Star.
Oh, that's just Panda Man. Typical Libra, right? Panda Man. Panda Man, say hi. Well, Phoenix, what do you have there in that cup there?
At lunch, I have a blended nutritional beverage. Instead of eating, down the hatch, and it provides fuel for the rest of the day.
That's interesting.
It's more efficient. I've got a report due soon, so. Excuse me. Back to work. Yeah, honestly, it's been a really great month. Everyone's really nice, and they all have their own style and things. I really appreciate the group dynamic that they all have with each other. It's very nice. You know, I think I'm starting to fit in.
So in Alaska, they call Burger King. Get it? Yeah, what's up, Phoenix? Oh, hey, Phoenix. Let me see you in my office. You got a minute?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. That'd be great. Thanks. So, you look different today. What's going on?
Well, you know, it's getting colder outside.
Phoenix. Come on. What's going on?
Well, it's been really tough, Skylar. I'm not fitting in. It's clearly I'm not fitting in.
Well, what if I tried a directive approach? What about achievement oriented? Phoenix, because you are doing such a great job, I got you a jar of pickles.
For me?
For you.
Oh,
Here you go.
Thank you.
You're the man.
Thank you.
Participative approach? I was just wondering if you had any predictions for financials for Finders of the Suns through the third quarter of 2018?
I don't have anything. I got nothing, Skylar. Stop asking me. I'm not. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah?
I know exactly how to help you fit in here.
Tell me. Yeah, my meeting with Skylar was great. Man, he helped me realize that I just worked myself into this crazy rut. I, for whatever reason, was just alienating myself on my own accord. It wasn't that anybody else here was being mean or unfriendly towards me. For whatever reason, I just felt like I was so out of place. I came from such a different background that I literally isolated myself.
Skylar noticed that I was having trouble in managing work and the culture change. Through our talk, he figured out that I needed a supportive managerial style to empower me and enable me to be more productive. He showed concern by listening to my issues and helped me deal with stress. As a result, I started asking for help when I needed it. It was rough at first,
but I think I'm starting to fit in here.
I love pickles.
You talk?
Yeah, why wouldn't I?
Hi, we are the Emotional Roller Coasters. In our film, we will showcase the leadership member exchange theory as it relates to loneliness, to analyze how high-quality exchanges with leaders lead to higher productivity, whereas low-quality exchanges lead to poor productivity and can contribute to low morale. Our film explores how an employee starting a new job can increasingly feel lonely because of her distorted perceptions, because of her previous job experiences where she had no friends and always felt left out. Join us on a journey where an emotionally intelligent leader utilizes the leader membership exchange theory to support a lonely employee moving from loneliness to companionate love. I hope this job works out. I need something better than my last job.
Okay, Stacey, I think Macy's ready for you.
Great.
Perfect. So why do you think you're a good fit for EM Enterprises?
I'm a really hard worker, you know, no matter what it takes to get any kind of project done, like I'm just gonna make sure that we get it in on time.
Perfect. And great. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, how would you describe the culture here?
Oh, really good. We're all one big family. When we work hard at the end of the day, we'll usually go to happy hours, so we're all really close. Love working together.
Okay, cool.
Perfect. Any other questions?
No.
Perfect. Perfect. I'd like to welcome you to EM Enterprises. We're glad to have you aboard, okay?
Okay.
Call me first thing Monday morning and then we'll get you going.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey guys, so our deadline for the payroll is this Thursday. Does anyone have any questions?
When is it due?
Thursday. Perfect. If you have any questions, let me know, okay?
Okay, cool.
Hello? Oh, perfect. I'll come grab you.
Okay, so what are we doing this weekend? Are we going to happy hour still?
Yeah, for sure.
And we're getting mozzarella sticks. Mozzarella sticks for sure.
Yeah. Last weekend was a lot of fun.
Oh my god, too much fun. It's really sad when he's like, oh, I need to get to class now. Like, I have a test or something.
Hey guys, this is Stacy. She's our newest member here. I'll be right back, okay? I have to go make a meeting.
I'm Tanya. I'm Alicia.
Hi, Marcella.
Hi. Stacy.
What was it at the end? I'm sorry?
Stacy.
Stacy, okay.
So how was your last job?
All her siblings.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Her nails are super long. They're rounded. And they're like, I don't know.
So for like Chinese culture, the longer your nails are, the more rich you are.
It was alright.
Oh, okay.
It was okay.
Oh my god, you must miss your coworkers. Did you guys get along?
Yeah, they were fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a great team here.
Yeah.
Favorite people on earth. So yeah, happy hour.
We're still going?
Yeah, we
After work.
should. Okay, are we going to Applebee's again?
Yeah.
They have a good happy hour.
Dollarita.
Dollarita, that's right. Okay.
Do you guys know where the restroom is?
Oh, it's down the hall that way.
Okay, I'll be right.
Okay. I guess we should focus. I mean, we have to, that deadline.
I know.
I haven't even started.
Hey guys, how's the payroll going?
It's going great.
It's good? Great.
Yeah.
So I was thinking instead of the happy hour, we do a surprise party for Stacy. Like a more welcoming party just to get her into our family.
Yeah,
How do you guys feel about that?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, we
Good.
should definitely plan something.
Great.
Especially because she seemed kind of shy. I don't know, was she kind of standoffish with you guys?
Yeah.
She seemed quiet.
Did I miss a meeting or something?
Okay, I think the board's done.
It looks so good.
Thank you. Oh my god, we did so good.
Perfect. Let me go grab her, you guys.
Okay. Stacy, can you follow me in here for a minute?
Yeah, sure. I think we're just coming out. Hey guys! Oh my god. You'll never believe what happened to me at Starbucks earlier today. Like, I told them my name and they put Stanley on the cup.
Oh my god.
Hello, everyone. We are Team Tris Emotion, and we are thrilled you have joined us to celebrate our visual representation of transformational leadership theory as it relates to the emotions of loneliness and enthusiasm. Transformational leadership theory suggests that leaders can play a key role in the forming and developing of significant organizational changes with a vision to help empower and encourage followers towards success. We will utilize this leadership theory to explore how creating empathetic relationships can enable a leader through individualized consideration to help a lonely employee in overcoming cultural and gender barriers to move from loneliness to enthusiasm in our film Devoted. We hope you have as much fun watching the show as we had making it.
Hi, John. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for coming.
It's good to see you, Christine.
Oh, it's good to see you too. You know, I know that you've just done so many wonderful things for our makeup company, and you know, we're just so thrilled to have you transferring in from another department. So we are so glad to have you here.
And happy to be here.
Awesome, great. Are you ready to go meet the team?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, perfect. Let's go. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Good.
Great. I want to introduce you to John. John is our new analyst. He just transferred from a different department here within our company. Why don't you get to know each other and introduce them to show them around a little bit? Okay. Have fun, John. Let me know if you need anything, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Do you want some more coffee? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Do you want to try the new almond creamer as well?
No. I get like a really bad allergy.
Oh, I'm
Allergic
sorry.
reaction from it,
Well,
yeah.
okay. Well, I'll just get you more coffee then.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So what do you prefer, the glazed donut or the popsicle lipstick?
Well, for everyday look, I really prefer the glazed donut, but for bolder look, I like the popsicle. Yeah.
Hey, what's everyone talking about?
So do you prefer the glazed donut or the popsicle?
Oh, I love donuts.
It's actually the lipstick shade color that we're talking about.
Oh.
Glazed donut is more like a pink nude, and popsicle is more like a orange red.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm more of a numbers guy myself.
That's okay. Well, it's pretty cool you like donuts though.
Yeah, hello? Yeah, no, it was a good day. Yeah, no, everybody was really nice there. Yeah, I didn't really make any friends today. I don't really know how to fit in because it's just not my department. Yeah, I tried. Yeah. Yeah, I can make them some cookies, yeah. Yeah. Hey, thanks. Love you. All right, bye. Hey, Liz, Mina. Hey, so I know we got off to a rocky start, but I made some cookies.
Thank you.
Try to show my welcome to this new apartment, you know, to new friends, right?
Wow, these are really good cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you put in them?
You know, flour, egg, milk, peanut butter.
Peanut butter? I'm allergic to peanut butter. I got it.
Wait, are you gonna have your cookies?
John, come here.
Yes.
So, have you seen Nina's commercial?
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah, you should look at it.
Oh dang, this is bad. Oh, I know. I'll shoot the commercial for her. Hey Nina, so I'm really sorry I messed up that commercial. I had no idea you were allergic to nuts, but I really wanted to make it up to you and I really wanted to find my place here in this company. So I just thought I could shoot the commercial for you. We look the same. You wanted to see me?
Hi, John. Come on in. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you joining me today. I just wanted to check in with you just to see how things are going.
Not that great. I actually don't feel like I fit in here.
Oh no, why is that?
I just been feeling quite lonely. I was just actually wondering if I could actually transfer out.
Well, John, you are a very valuable member of our team, and I'd really hate to see you leave. I have a couple of ideas that I think might help. Would you mind if we talked about this a little bit more after the team meeting that we're about to go into?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. Well, you are just really, truly valuable to us, and I really would love if we can figure this out to help you feel like you're part of the team. Thank you.
Hey, everyone.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for the team meeting. I appreciate that. We're going to do a couple of reports here just to see the status of where we are in our project. Liz, would you like to give your report?
Of course, yeah. Well, as of right now, we don't really know what to launch in our, next month. So I can't really predict what colors or what finishes are in right now because they have been up and down.
Thank you very much. John, would you please give us your report as well?
Well, Christine, I was running the numbers of the last couple products we had. L5 and L6 were doing the best in the last couple quarters, so I think we should be running more marketing towards those. Does that make sense to everybody?
Thank you so much for that, John. I appreciate that. Looks like there's a little bit of confusion here in the room on what L5 and L6 are, so let me clarify. L5 is actually the color Devoted.
Wow, you did a really good job, John.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, your report was really impressive.
Oh, hey, thank you, everybody.
I noticed that we've been a little bit individualized lately and that we haven't really been working as cohesively as a team as I think would be beneficial to our success. I would like you to work with John on producing the product Devoted in time for our holiday sales.
Okay. Well, John, I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, me too.
And then Liz, I'd like you to go ahead and work with them after they're done with the product development and then work with them on trying to figure out how we're going to market this product out to the public.
Of course, no problem.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'd like all three of you to work together. Can we make sure that we get together and get this done?
Yeah.
Great, perfect, I'm counting on you all. All right, and as a last special treat, I have a surprise. Who wants cookies? Where'd everybody go? Action!
Go away! Everybody go away! We're trying to film this. Just keep it rolling. Just keep it
call you guys in for a meeting today. We have some exciting news. Justin has recently been promoted to the manager in the office. Congrats! Yay! So just remember, you guys, I know that we're all friends here, but I'm trying to keep it as professional as possible because I will be out of town, especially these next few days for a business trip in New York. And Justin's going to be the one that's going to be holding down the fort in the meantime. So I gave him a list of things for you guys all to do. And I just hope everything, runs smoothly. If you guys need me, my phone will be on me, so feel free to email me or call me or anything like that. But yes, congratulations, Justin. Congrats.
Yeah, I think I can make it. My friend just got promoted to be my boss. I'll see you there.
Hey Jessica, why aren't you working?
Hey, I was wondering if I could leave early today. I have some dinner plans with friends.
Actually, I don't think we can. We need to make sure all the paperwork is done today and filed and sent out so we can pick up from it tomorrow as well. Okay. Hey, Gerard, I need you to start your work as well and be down. Thank you.
I can't believe he said no to me.
Yeah, I thought he would say yes. He's kind of acting weird.
I know, he's so bossy now.
Did you see what he was wearing too? Like, he's just a manager. I don't know why he got all dressed up in a three-piece suit that he bought from like JCPenney the other day.
I know, right?
Hey guys, so it seems like we had a decently productive day, but could be things we could work on and fix. But since the day's over, did you guys want to go out to eat tonight?
Well, I wanted to go earlier, but it's getting late, so no.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I'm just gonna head home too.
So unfortunately, we did worse than yesterday, and I know it's been a long day, so I ordered you guys some food to go, and hope we get some dinner together this time.
What is it?
It's chicken, because you wanted chicken yesterday.
Well, I wanted it yesterday, I don't want it today. I feel like pizza today.
Yeah, we're just gonna go get some pizza. We would invite you, but you already have food, so
yeah.
We're just gonna go.
Bye.
Bye.
Justin, are you okay?
Have you been here all night?
All night, what? What happened?
Are you okay? Have you been here all night?
I haven't been here all night, no.
What's going on in here? Justin, are you drunk?
No, I'm not
Can
drunk.
the two of you give us a minute, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you have a seat, please? I'd like to talk to you. Justin, what's going on? I'm worried about you, and I need to know what happened while I was gone in New York.
I don't know, it's really, really hard to just balancing professionalism with the coworkers you have at work, and it just feels really lonely. It just sucks that I can't be the same person before, and now it's different. It's just something new I haven't done before.
You know, Justin, I totally understand. I've been in your place before, but I'm just curious to know, have you spoken with them recently about it?
No, I haven't talked to her specifically about it, but after I noticed that things were tense, I tried doing nice gestures for them to make up for it, but it didn't seem like they wanted to get along, so after a long day, I just started drinking.
Well, I wouldn't resort to drinking. That's, you know, it really isn't healthy for you, and it's not healthy for the employees. So what I would recommend is that you talk to them. I would be as genuine and as honest as possible and let them know how you feel. And, you know, I think that would really benefit you and them as well.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it because it's a really new position for me, so thank you for helping me.
Absolutely. And I'll help you with every step of the way. Just let me know if you need anything, okay?
So hey everybody, I just want to have this meeting just to formally say I'm sorry, I apologize for my behavior. I was just getting adjusted to this new position I have now. It's really unfamiliar to me, so I do apologize how it affected to you as well.
Yeah, we didn't realize that this position was going to get to you.
Yeah, we weren't really thinking about how the position would affect you, so we're sorry about that.
It's okay, I really take the blame because I am like the leader for everyone, so I'm just going to work. Moving forward, we're going to work on our relationships professionally and personally and being able to balance it and not at all let it affect work at all and being able to still maintain a healthy relationship as well. Are we fine with you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Hidden stars sitting in the room. So as I read the team's name, I would appreciate if you can just all stand up so that you can get an applause. 5 amigos. Emotional roller coasters. Team Trust Emotion. They're standing back there. 5th Intelligence. Again, they're standing back there. In this part of our program, we are going to be doing something unique because of a magical coincidence. So, as I mentioned, literally this week, our article about workplace loneliness with Sigal Barsaid is going to be coming out in print in Academy of Management Journal. It's a very traditional journal, and yet they are trying to include more creativity to their publication process. And recently, they've invited authors to create visual materials for the articles that's going to be embedded in the dynamic edition of the journal. And for that purpose, Sigal and I were determined to come up with something. And I think we did something quite interesting, and this is going to be the world premiere of that production. So you'll be watching a video of an article that's going to be published, and there's going to be some surprises in there too. So there we go.
Loneliness has become a common problem in today's society, but surprisingly, there has been very little examination of loneliness in organizations, despite the fact that most people spend a large part of their lives at work. Loneliness is important because of our need for connection with others. It is often mistaken as being alone, but this is not the case. Just because you work alone, for example, doesn't mean you will necessarily feel lonely. Rather, it is about feeling badly based on your assessment that your work relationships are not meeting your need to connect with others. For example, 2 employees could be in the same work group, but one might feel lonely while the other does not, based on a combination of their need to connect and what they perceive the social environment has to offer. Also, just because you are lonely at work doesn't mean you will also feel lonely elsewhere, such as your family or social life, and vice versa. To better understand the influence of loneliness at work, we conducted a field study examining the relationship between workplace loneliness and performance. As expected, we found that lonelier employees perform significantly less well at work as rated by their supervisors. This is because even though lonelier employees may desperately want to connect with others, they tend to see their social environment as threatening, and so they become overly sensitive to rejection in others' responses, are more self-focused, and are not as interactive. Thus, lonelier employees actually seem less approachable to their colleagues than less lonely employees. Our results also indicated that lonelier employees feel affectively less committed to their organizations. We theorize that this is because when employees feel badly about being disconnected from their work group, this negative feeling fans out toward ever-widening circles of potential connections, and ultimately to their commitment to the organization as a whole. To see how this process operates, take a look at this scene in a meeting where a lonely employee faces difficulties effectively approaching his coworkers, does not feel close to anyone around him, and even when he tries to engage in a conversation with others, his attempts to engage are ineffective, which ultimately leads to poorer performance. Now look at the same scene where the employee does not feel lonely. Rather, he engages in behaviors that help him effectively connect with his coworkers, is approachable to others, and stays committed and will ultimately exhibit higher levels of performance. Our study also considered a number of factors that can help mitigate the negative outcomes of workplace loneliness. The negative relationship between workplace loneliness and affective commitment is reduced for employees who work in stronger versus weaker emotional cultures of companionate love, where it is more acceptable and expected to express affection, caring, compassion, and tenderness. In contrast, this negative relationship is increased in emotional cultures of anger, where expressing angry feelings is more acceptable and expected, as well as if employees are surrounded by more rather than less other lonely coworkers. Our study shows that work, where people spend so much of their time, is not immune from the negative outcomes of loneliness. We find that loneliness hurts not only the lonelier employees, but also their coworkers and their organizations. In an era sometimes called by media the age of loneliness, a more complete understanding of workplace loneliness will not only help organizations and the people in them, but perhaps help create a healthier society as well.
Okay, so now we are moving to the next phase of our program. And in this part, we are going to literally create a studio environment. We are going to make it as interactive as possible. If I can manage the equipment properly. Just one second. There we go. Okay. So we have two wonderful commentator panelists today who will help us, first of all, analyze and then integrate about the films we've just watched, and then go take a step further to look at a topic that's so important and that's so new. So we are kind of the world leaders right now sitting in this room, and we might as well come up with some brilliant ideas that might give us the hints for some direction to start finding ways to improve work environments by finding solutions for workplace loneliness. Our first guest is Professor Mandy O'Neill, my great friend, the co-author of my co-author, 2 degrees of separation. Mandy is from George Mason University, and she's currently is on sabbatical in UC Berkeley, and she's got her PhD from Stanford, and she's a leading scholar in organizational culture, and more recently in companionate love, the antithesis of loneliness in some sense. And so I would like to invite Mandy to the stage. And our other guest is Mr. Francois Baptiste. He's a great complement to Mandy to bring an artistic and practical lens. He's an acclaimed actor with 20-year career in film, TV, and theater, mostly in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. I know he's very busy with a lot of productions, and we've been so fortunate to have him today. And he's got a BA in Fine Arts from the Illinois State University, so please welcome Francois. And I'll be the Donahue. Okay, so our commentators viewed the films several weeks ago through private links, and then they were given these questions to provide us their commentary. So what we'll do is first we'll turn to Mandy, and she will address this question: which specific characters, interaction, and our situation in each film have you found the most intriguing? And then what do the stories emerging from these characters, interactions, and our situations tell us about the links between each leadership theory, discrete emotions, and loneliness?
Thank you. And I have to say, this is very exciting to be here because when I saw some of you entering, it was like meeting the movie stars. So I recognize some of you from your film. So it's a great pleasure to be here amidst the stars. And also, I just want to take a moment to congratulate all of you on your work. It was just so impressive. I am also a business school professor, and I have never seen anything like this. So congratulations to you and to your wonderful team here. You're very, very lucky to have a professor like this and to have a supportive school like this. So congratulations. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here. So I'm going to come at this from a little bit of an academic perspective, but as someone who did stage acting a little before I became a professor, which is actually like the one profession where it's sort of helpful because we're up on stage. So I want to talk a little, just very briefly, about each film and about what I found intriguing. And I have to reveal my bias, which is, whereas your professor is an expert in loneliness, I am an expert in companionate love. So I was looking at it very much from the lens of affection, caring, compassion, and tenderness, and the extent to which in some ways it acts as a buffer to some of the really painful emotions that we experience at work, which I thought all of you did such a beautiful job portraying. In fact, it's actually, companionate love is a bit different than another emotion, which is empathy. But I was feeling empathy as I was seeing the films and seeing the really excellent work that you guys did portraying some of the characters of the workplace. And so as I was watching it, it was hard not to feel a great deal of empathy for some of the characters. And to the specific questions that I was asked to address, I found myself strangely empathizing with the protagonists, some of whom were not always the leaders, which is really interesting. And that's something that's actually really missing in our leadership theories. Recently, we've seen more of it, but an emphasis on the followers and the extent to which you can't actually have leaders unless you have followers. And so to the extent that we have a dearth of research and understanding about followers, I thought all the films did a really nice job portraying some of the emotions of the followers and how emotions in this way provide a link between leaders and followers. That's been in some cases hinted at in leadership theories, and you all did a really nice job covering some of the major ones. But I think your professor and I and all of us who work in this field would really say we could go a lot farther with this. So to talk about each film specifically, the first film, I have to say that I particularly identified as someone now living in Silicon Valley and who was brought up in Silicon Valley with the emphasis on startup culture and how it can be really, really alienating to come from corporate culture where you have, rules and responsibilities and formalities and structure that's really out of place, and how the organizational structure in that case can create a situation in which people feel lonely because everything they knew is suddenly not relevant anymore, and you're surrounded by these really quirky personalities where anything goes at startups and you're just forming the cultures. In terms of which characters, I particularly identified with Pickle Man or Panda Man. I feel like I have a lot of Pickle Man, Panda Man in my own industry, and so I was really identifying with. And it's also interesting to think that we all wear masks, and when we peel back the layers and we go a little bit deeper, people have these sides of themselves that in a stronger culture of companionate love can be revealed. So in the end, I thought the film was so suspenseful, and then we learned that Panda Man actually speaks. techniques, and that, by mixing up the leadership styles, I actually thought the leader in that film did such a nice job, the manager, at really emphasizing how you can really switch up your techniques for different personalities, which this startup and many organizations has a lot of. So I thought that was a really fun interaction. I thought it was suspenseful. I thought it was funny. My sons thought that too. I actually had my 7 and 10-year-olds preview the films with me in advance, so their comments are reflected here as well. In the second film, let me make sure I get my order right. So the second film was Stacy, right? So, oh my gosh, I was feeling such empathy for Stacy. The trash can scene, just so perfectly encapsulated what it can feel like without anyone saying a word, because one of the important things about emotions is that you don't actually need verbals to express what you're feeling. And I thought that scene, the music, the scrunched shoulders and the paper hitting her was just so perfectly communicated how difficult it was. And then I think we all felt a collective sigh of relief when the strong culture of companionate love, as I would say, reached out to her to embrace her in the culture, because it can be really hard actually to enter a strong culture of companionate love as a newcomer, because those strong relations can make you feel like you're not a part of it. So in some ways it can exacerbate loneliness. But in a strong culture of love, people bring you into it, even if you're a little bit different and maybe you seem a little shy. So they took the time to get to know her without even knowing all of what she went through. And then it sort of left her opening up. I also thought it was interesting that there was a lot of joviality, which is another emotion that I researched, and enthusiasm and excitement that was mixed in there as well. So that's kind of the fun and funny aspect of it, which I have found in my own work pairs well with the companionate love to be just an amazing culture. For the third film, what I thought was so fun about that one was, oh my goodness, I felt like that film did such a great job at what I would call a gendered interaction. So we often talk about building cultures of inclusivity and diversity by focusing on the experiences of underrepresented minorities and sometimes women. But in this film, it did such a nice job of showing how if you're a man in a more feminine department or culture, you can feel just as lonely as in the way we traditionally talk about it. And I thought that conversation around lipstick and his attempt to affiliate by doing that incredibly awkward scene where he put on the lipstick was just such a great example of how cultures of inclusivity really apply to everybody who's not the majority in that department, in this case, or organization. I thought that was really so funny and great. I also felt a great degree of embarrassment, shared embarrassment on the part of him, and the cookie scene. So really, I thought that was such a nice little way. And in the end, it was fun how the leader managed to bring everybody together along with her kind of plan moving forward in a way that allowed them to have a superordinate goal that bridged some of the differences between them. So I thought that was really effective and a nice way of demonstrating that leadership theory. For the fourth film, one of the things that I thought was so funny is that, we don't usually talk about the experience of how lonely it can be to be a leader. There is an article I love, which is called something along the lines of it's lonely at the top, because for a long time, we never took the perspective of the leader. And I thought that this film did such a nice job at showing the perspective of the leader, in this case, the manager, who just because the role changed, in theory, he's the same person, but it shows the powerful effect of the role on people, which is same person, but suddenly they're in this role, and how difficult that can be and how lonely, something we don't often think about. I thought the coworkers were, not making it super easy for him, but, therein lies the challenge of when suddenly you're in a different role, you have different relationships, and maybe he was trying to put on the suit in many ways, metaphorically as well as literally, and not paying attention to some of the needs of his coworkers, which may have been around the importance of that dinner. It was really important to him. So I thought the drinking thing was funny, because again, it's not something we talk about, but, this is we have vices that sometimes show up as a result. So in this presentation, you alluded to the impacts on health. We do find that sometimes people engage in unhealthy behaviors, both inside and outside of work, as a result of some of the painful experiences they have at work. So I thought that was a nice, funny, but accurate demonstration of what was going on there. And it was great to see them come together in the end and move forward. So really nice job on that. Connected the leadership theory so nicely, but also great choice of music. I think one of the beautiful things about film is you can use music to communicate emotions and to elicit emotions in ways that you can't through dialogue always. You can't through reading some boring leadership theory. You definitely can't through reading our articles, which that little description was 1,000 times more interesting than reading it. So yay, your professor saved you from that. Also, just so impressive how you guys mastered film techniques. I think you'll talk about this more, so I won't steal any thunder. But as a non-film person, I was so impressed with how you used visuals, how you used pacing, how you used the dramatic-logical techniques. So really nice job. I'll stop there. Thanks so much for the invitation.
And Mandy, Sigala has been one of our best commentators yet. I think you can compete with her. Thank you very much. So, so now we are turning to Francois. The same question with a little bit twist. This time, rather than theories, we want to seek his insights about the manifestation of loneliness at the behavioral level, being an actor and being in movie industry and theater industry for a long time. Also, your lens of as an employee or as a director, how is loneliness manifested in work relationships?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. You're a hard act to follow. I don't know if I'd be able to follow that. But first of all, you guys did an amazing job. As an actor, the way you guys threw yourself into the circumstances that you were facing is really, I'm impressed. Because to wear that panda outfit, man, it's not easy. So I commend all of you, and thank you for putting on this event. I had to write down some notes because what I was doing was going over this with my wife as well. And a lot of things actually resonated in a lot of different ways. First of all, the very first film, Phoenix, first of all, I like how you embodied coming from the corporate world, your body and your body language, the way you walked up to the, you had the walk, the speech typified that corporate cliche, and the overworked corporate drone coming from an uptight, more button-up atmosphere. You weren't used to being in a lax atmosphere, and you didn't necessarily have that acclimation period. And my wife, who actually went to, she started a job at JPMC, and she felt the same thing. She was thrown in and didn't necessarily have the orientation, and so it really resonated. And I felt for you with the kombucha versus coffee. The protagonist, that you were able to actually make me feel for you in every situation that you were in, and it manifested in you doing these absurd things like putting on your own outfit, and it's just like you kind of lose yourself when you're thrust into an environment like that. So I felt for you in the awkwardness that it caused. I like Panda Guy as well, because you're just doing your thing and you weren't trying to impress anyone, and that to me speaks volumes, and I know that's not easy to do in a corporate setting. I must say that the boss took an easygoing, active approach in making sure the Phoenix was acclimated in the end, and I thought that was actually really good too. The trash to treasure, Stacy didn't tell the truth. I understood why she didn't tell the truth about her previous work experience. It was a golden opportunity to bridge the gap, but sometimes we compromise our truths in order to make sure that we don't bring our baggage from one experience into the next. And I sympathize with you. It almost backfired, though. The baggage can hinder and almost self-sabotage your experience. It's important to have that open mind when you're thrust into a new environment. But your co-workers all rallied behind you, and you had a strong team leader, which was really awesome to see, that how people were able to coalesce and bring you on board. And I thought that was really great too. The third film, John seemed to be a little bit uninformed when he was transferred within the company, and it's almost as though I felt for him, especially about the donut atmosphere, the donut area around the coffee table. I was like, I thought that they were talking about donuts as well. I had no idea they were talking about, and so I was just really, I felt for him, the cookies, the things that it allowed him to, he took that phone call from his girlfriend, and it's always important to listen to your girlfriend and try to make, try to make some cookies. Unfortunately, she was allergic to nuts, and it kind of backfired, but he was taking proactive steps to try to fit in. So I really I felt what he was trying to do. The lipstick moment was a great, unexpected, humorous twist, and I just kind of popped up when I was watching it, and I just thought that was great. The boss, the leader in this, I thought that was an excellent leader. She made sure that everyone got in touch with each other, and if there was any miscommunication, I really felt her direct approach in bringing everybody on board and bridging the gap. So I thought that was awesome as well. Film number 4, One is the Loneliest Number. Justin gets that promotion. And I really resonated with this. When I graduated Juilliard, I didn't find a job for a while, and so I applied for a job at Covenant House, which is the largest non-for-profit organization that sponsors abused and homeless kids in the telefundraising department. And right away, I got boosted up to the supervisor. And so I was amongst other people who have been working in that job for 10, 11, 12, 13 years. And I had just come on board 3 months. And I got this promotion. And that sitting in the break room was just like cold. It was really cold. And so I really felt you and how you, find that balance between being amongst your peers, but in a new position. So Justin was experienced and he wasn't ready, and that acclimation period was a abbreviated one because his boss kind of went out of town to New York right away. So I was just like, man, pick up the phone, call your boss. What should you do? So I was feeling for him, but I think overall, what I was watching was you all being so brave and a platform in which you're not necessarily used to. Much like me sitting up here trying to talk about it, it's not an atmosphere I'm used to. But I was heartened by your bravery and you able to thrust yourself into situations, and I think what that's going to do for you on an empathetic level, whatever job you land, you're going to have, like we as actors, our job is to put our circumstances in other people's shoes or their walk of life. So from empathy, you're gonna, I'm just not making sense right now, but you guys are gonna really grow from this experience, and I'm glad that you have this is an amazing event. Yeah.
And I'm so glad we are having you along with Mandy, because what you brought today is even a wider, deeper focus on the nonverbal elements, which is really important with the filmmaking. So coming from the acting background, so my prediction is supported. It was great to have that lens, so you really added a lot. So now we are getting more interactive. We got 3 questions to cover, but I want it to be more like a jam session. And the rule now is, if you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll be running. I'll be having you asking your question or making your comment. But looking at all this, and I think we've got great insights now and an overarching view of these 4 film projects, let's focus on loneliness a little bit closer. Why would employees feel lonely? And how can coworkers influence a lonely employee? And then also, how does loneliness differ from social exclusion, depression, and introversion? Because these distinctions are so important for self-reflection. It's one thing to think that or feel that you are depressed, and it's another thing to feel that you are lonely. And it's important that we make those distinctions as clear as possible for our practical purposes at the minimum, but at the managerial level, how can you detect a lonely employee from a depressed employee? Because one is clinical. You are not a psychiatrist, you cannot help it. But if you have a lonely employee, that's not clinical. Any one of us can feel lonely at any time. And as we'll get in a moment, because of the cycles of loneliness, it can become a big hole to dig into. So in that sense, managerial role is important. And now what are the potential roles of empathy and leading with emotional intelligence to prevent workplace loneliness? So I don't know, this is the first time we are doing this. So who wants to get started? Is there any question along these lines or any comments? Perfect, thank you. You get an extra credit today.
Okay, so actually for the second question, I don't have the answer for it, and that is what I'm concerned about. How does loneliness differ from social exclusion, depression, and introversion? The thing is, we don't have classes that teach us on how to differ from depression and loneliness itself. There really are no classes for that. And from where I'm currently work at, I've been to like a few like work training session, and most of them focus on like teamwork and leadership. They don't focus on like emotional intelligence, which is a theme of today's festival. And it's only recently that people start to bring focus on mental illnesses, and therefore like we need to be in touch with our emotion, because if we don't understand our emotion, how do we expect other people to like communicate it well with us or understand reading it from other people's perspective? Because there's so many factors go into it, like cultural factor, gender factor, and then like different social setting. And I'm just wondering like if anyone in the judges or the commentary could somehow answer that.
Mandy, you wanna?
Well, one of the
Sorry.
previous commentators, Sigal Barsaid, and our mutual co-author, is an expert in emotional intelligence, and there is some debate out there about whether it can be trained. There are certainly some people for whom it comes more naturally, but I think most people in the field would say that there is some benefit to training and to just recognizing emotions. So even having the vocabulary of emotions is a good way to start, because one of the things I think we've observed is that employees don't necessarily even know how to recognize emotions, much less how to generate conversations around it. And my research is on culture, and if you ask people about organizational cultures, they almost never talk about the emotions that help define their culture. So I think training and increasing people's awareness of it can then start conversations around it that make it easier. As for loneliness specifically, as Hakan pointed out, the question we often asked ourselves, and it's in some ways the more hopeful aspect of this, is what are some of the solutions, or the metaphor that Sigal and I like to use are the antidotes. So what can help buffer the pain, or what can help make it better, like sort of medicine. And one of the things that's unique about loneliness, as I understand it, not being an expert in it per se, but that, helping to find people and make connections, and not just superficial connections, but more deeper connections, is one antidote to loneliness, which is different than depression, as I understand it. So depression is clinical, but loneliness, to some extent, that pulling people out of that involves helping to deeper the connectivity between them and their coworkers. And again, not just like one-off interactions and not superficial ones, but what we call high quality connections, meaningful connections, all of which are a lot easier in stronger cultures in which that's baked into the workplace at every level, including rituals, routines, norms, and values around connecting with others in a meaningful way.
I'd like to quickly draw on that because of the behavioral aspect, because there's a ton of research in social psychology that has shown that lonely people behave in distinct ways, and kind of intriguing ways, because sometimes lonely people over-disclose. You meet them, they tell you about everything, and then you don't know what to do, and then you withdraw, and then they feel even worse because they feel like they are not connected. Or they don't disclose anything. They just stand there, you ask them some questions, they give some quick answers, you don't really build a relationship. Or they become over-dependent. They want everything from you. You get close to them, and then they want you to be their buddy, close friend, which you are not ready for, which also, so there's a lot of these attempts which brings loneliness almost to the opposite of depression, where the person doesn't want to get close to them, like they want to just be in there on corner. So because of these behavioral aspects, I think there is a way out at the managerial level to detect those behaviors. And I loved your comment about creating a structure where it's okay to approach a lonely employee and say, hey, it looks like something is not working. I mean, do you want to just talk? But how we are going to get there at the HR level, at the managerial level, is a big question. The thing, though, is that a lot of companies, especially in Silicon Valley, are getting more and more interested in those questions because, as you have mentioned, they are creating these cultures where you are not in ties and suits anymore, and in a way they are inducing friendship. They are creating environments where people actually are expected to become friends. But what if they don't? And then they have this liability to focus on loneliness at the professional level, because they might easily lose these employees because they don't fit in anywhere. Whereas if you are wearing ties and suits, even if you don't feel close to anyone, you can at the minimum perform your roles and you can get the job done. So you got some performance zone. So you don't want to create an environment where it's flexible, but you don't help people if people are not feeling comfortable in that flexible environment. I see some hands, and I'm going to go back all the way back. You want to come over here? Yeah, come here, Teresa.
So I guess a huge buzzword these days are globalization of, different businesses, right? And with different cultures comes different expectations, sensitivities to emotions and responses to emotions. You do have some cultures that are very, they're very adamant where you are not supposed to show emotions at all. So how would you advise them, or what would you recommend? How do you see these, like this kind of a program or this kind of setup affecting people that are not supposed to show emotions?
Well, it's a great question, and you can imagine how with any question you can add multiple levels of complication, including national culture, but also within a culture you have differences. Some of the most interesting research now is on the difference between the dominant majority in cultures and underrepresented minorities in disclosure, and how disclosure doesn't feel comfortable to everybody because sometimes they feel like that can be held against them or is not going to help them connect. And so there's increasing complications around all of this. And I should note that somewhere in there, we were talking about introversion. I mean, this is a big buzzword these days about the fact that, especially in the US, it's a very extroverted culture in general. And so there's new research on introverts for whom something like a happy hour where everybody's superficial and it's a lot of people could be like their worst nightmare. And so back to the sort of individualized consideration aspect of leadership, it's important to think about the ways in which, my definition as an unabashed extrovert of what is a way to connect might be the total opposite of somebody who's an introvert, or somebody, to your point, from a culture where superficial interactions are very uncomfortable. There's a lot of layers of getting to know people. There are a lot of gestures of politeness that aren't to be confused with one's authentic self, which may not be revealed at work at all. That's the domain of family. That's the domain of very close friends. And so, and in some cultures, it's totally inappropriate to have the kind of closeness that some company cultures and some national cultures have. Whereas at the opposite extreme, I've done some presentations, for example, one in Brazil, where they said, listen, our problem isn't lack of companionate love, which is sometimes what the U.S., corporations come to me with, but too much love, and there's some cultures where, the Philippines is another country where I've done work, and they said, no, we have enough love, but we have a hard time having the difficult conversations because it's hard to say difficult things that hurt people's feelings and violate, interpersonal sensitivities. So I think it's always important to take into consideration national culture, but also just individual differences. And again, one of the predictions about cultures of companionate love is that it's not a one size fits all, that every organization kind of does it differently. So when I study really male dominated cultures, it looks a little more, roughhousing and camaraderie, brotherly love. When I study, organizations that are majority women, sometimes it looks a little different. So sometimes it's gender, culture, racial, ethnic differences, and national culture is a big topic, one that a lot of global organizations struggle with. One solution I'd say that they sometimes offer is, again, back to the subordinate culture, which is, you're from China, you're from India, you're from Philippines, you're from West Coast, you're from East Coast, but here we're all one. Actually one company I've always been fascinated with that's local to you guys is Intel. I remember traveling around the world and being so amazed at how people would say things like, no matter where you go in the world, it feels like Intel. And I thought, now that's pretty neat, because here's a company, and I can think of many like that, where they've done a really good job at creating the organizational culture so that all of the differences or some ways find themselves at home, whether it's the decor, but certainly the values, the structures. And I think that's really kind of organizational culture in some ways at its best, where we can all be ourselves, but we can come together under an organizational culture that we all get behind, we all believe in, that keeps us going. So I'll just kind of offer that.
And along the lines of culture, we know that there is a strong stigma in North American culture about revealing loneliness. You might even be perceived as being the loser. And for that very reason, research has shown that a lot of people feel lonely, but they are too scared, another emotion, to talk about their loneliness. So I think the more we start breaking that barrier, that stigma, the more likely that it'll be okay to talk about your loneliness. So one challenge, though, is that in a recent fMRI study we have conducted, what we have found is that people tend to ignore the lonely person. So biologically, you might be programmed just to overlook someone who is lonely. So there's also this functional component now. So you got a dilemma. On one hand, lonely people want to get close to, but on the other hand, other people don't even remember them, because what we have found is that lonely people are not registered. In hippocampus and amygdala, the memory portions of the brain, they are not even remembered. Not that they are hated or they are disgusted, they are not even taken into account. So there's the cultural elements, and there's also this biological element that needs to be taken account. We have a special guest here, Mr. Kutay Özçelik, and I think he has a question.
Can any of you relate to these movies? For instance, say something happened to you that nobody can really relate to, and then you just feel lonely.
I think, in other words, we want to hear your personal loneliness story. Is there anything that resonates from your real life experience, Francois?
Thank you so much for your question. You having a beautiful young man here, and brilliantly intelligent. He reminded us something at lunch about the golden rule that I'd just like to bring up really quickly. When you were talking about different cultures and whatnot, even if it doesn't rise to a HR level, we always want to treat others the way we would like to be treated. So you reminded us at lunch about that, and so I just want to say thank you for that. I related a lot to the film number 4, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I was thrusting I was trying to get a job, to pay the rent basically in New York, and I got a job at Covenant House, and it just so happens that I became very good at telefundraising. And after 3 months, I was promoted to supervisor. And that means I was critiquing the other callers. That means I was bringing them in to the office, and people who had been working for over 10, 12, 13 years. And I would get eyes rolled at. And I was told by my supervisor that, that's just the way it's going to be. You have to handle it. And it was really difficult because it was a small office, and we had to have lunch together. And I had a bit of arrogance too, so I would kind of isolate myself and not worry about it so much. But inside, it depressed me to a point where I was trying to protect myself from exposing myself, from becoming vulnerable in a corporate environment. And so I resonated with the gentleman who got promoted, and sometimes you look for those escapes. But I did go to my boss, and I think it's important, and it behooves us, and it's incumbent upon us to reach out to our bosses or whoever may bend their ear and ask for suggestions on how I handle a certain situation in order for it to get a little bit better. But sometimes loneliness can be, I guess, a little bit crippling, but you do want to look for that outlet. Yeah.
And I think the earlier you take a step out of it, the better. And the longer someone stays in that loneliness state because of the cycles, because every attempt fails, and then every failure breathes into your distorted perceptions of I cannot relate to anyone, combined with some panic, then you really start getting into a position where it will be too difficult to get out. Mandy?
So one of my co-authors who's passed away, Peter Frost, said, "There's always pain in the room," and I think it's such a beautiful phrase because everyone. I mean, the assumption there is that any situation you enter and any person has pain, and even if they don't reveal it, that's sometimes in some ways the most deceptive of loneliness, because they may look like a social butterfly, they may look like everything's fine. So to your question, I had that experience over the weekend when I got together with my graduate school roommate, and graduate school is a hard time for everybody. I went to school up the road at Stanford, everybody's super smart, and you feel like you're the stupidest person in the room all the time, and it's really hard.
Have you ever felt that way?
And I was very lonely because I came from a really warm, wonderful community back where I am from in Baltimore, Maryland, and on the opposite side of the country, very collectivistic culture, and I was thrown into this environment where I was very lonely. But curiously, my roommate this weekend said, "Yeah, I'm so surprised to hear that you were sad and anxious and lonely. you just seem so happy all the time. And so it's so important that even when someone looks like they're happy, to just peel back the layers and take a little bit of time and know that everyone has pain in the room. So I remember the character where, she had this pain from a previous experience and she was debating whether to bring it up because A, you don't want to contage people, you don't want to bring them down, B, you don't want to reactivate those feelings yourself, so you just want to bury it. But to know that, Stacy in that one character had pain that she was bringing in, and that the group just sort of embraced it. And I think that sometimes you do that, you just, package that away, but it's always there and it's part of you. And so everyone carries around that. So I did identify with that because, even being a dispositionally happy person, there's situations you can be in that are painful and difficult and bring out really negative emotions and loneliness.
I like your metaphor of currency. And I think it might be a way out here that if you think about relationships and attention as a currency, and in social exchange we just give and take, lonely people, they might be just in debt and they might be just bankrupt. So what would you do if a friend of yours come and says, I need money, can you borrow me some, right? I think it's a lot easier for us just to do that than giving that extra attention without getting any, up to a point where they feel back to normal again. So I think that currency approach might be a way out, just helping the poor, but not money-wise, but relationship-wise, right? Especially in these times of helping season.
And another metaphor is village, because sometimes, you have, I have a colleague, he lost his wife. She was his everything. They're very introverted, and I was his buddy. And he was very lonely. So he's exactly like the over-disclosing person that you're describing. And I felt it was a bit of a burden. And I think if we had a better culture to share his pain as a village, it would have been a little easier. Versus sometimes, if you think one person can do all of this work to help the lonely among us, it's a big burden on them. Sometimes they can't. They don't have enough money in their bank. But when you spread it collectively and create a culture around it, it makes it a little easier because one person is not carrying so much of the load for a coworker who's struggling, for example.
It's almost like giving in a way that you just get $1 from each person instead of somebody donating a huge sum of money to someone. And it's a lot easier if everybody chips in. It also becomes more fun to some extent. One more question, because I know the anxiety is rising in the room because you got this competition component and award ceremony. One last question. If I don't see any other hand, I'm going to turn to you.
Since we're speaking about culture and upon the example I've been giving, something that that I tried to think through is that in our movie Devoted, the moment when the protagonists were crying, there were a few laughter around the room, and we laughed too, even during the meeting when we wrote the script. And any person that I show it to, they laugh at that moment. But as I was cutting that scene without music, it was sad. And if the protagonist was a woman, around the room, instead of laughter, I'd be like, oh, that's really sad. And, one of the ideas that we have when we wrote this was we need to address toxic masculinity, in our culture. And I guess my question is, when and how, when man expressing loneliness, in this particular instance, when man expressing the emotion, will stop being funny. Don't get me wrong, I can enjoy a good laugh, but there's something seriously wrong that we find funny before we find it empathetic.
Such a good comment. I'm going to actually turn it to you really quickly because we brought up, first of all, awesome reference to toxic masculinity. You have done such a good job training your students and all the professors in the college to have these rather esoteric theories being just talked about casually. It's a great point. I was actually surprised because I watched it just with my sons that everyone was laughing as well. I saw that it was a little hammed up and maybe that was some comic relief, but I too was like, wow, he's crying and we're the audience is kind of laughing. How strange. We talked at lunch about Francois has so many amazing friends in addition to his own accomplishments, one of whom was in the movie Moonlight, which I thought did such a beautiful job at what some are calling tender masculinity. And I think we need so many more portrayals of them to start to make that a more acceptable way of communicating and understanding emotions. So let me turn to you, though, because you're the actor and you brought up the movie.
I did, yes. Actually, he wrote the movie, Moonlight, and he's an amazing writer and actor as well. But and thank you for bringing that up. it's so, I feel you on that. Laughter is an involuntary release. And sometimes, people being in the theater, I've performed in front of thousands of people, and sometimes there is a moment that you don't know how people are going to respond to it. It's in the theater, you say the audience is your last cast member. So, and it's different every night. You don't know what people are going to be responding to, and sometimes people are chuckling out of nervousness. Sometimes you don't necessarily know, and as a performer, it's difficult for you to zero in on why that person or those people are chuckling and what seems to be an inappropriate time. The moment that you're speaking of, I think the elements of music and time is working against you to really delve deeply into what that person is feeling. And so I think that it's I don't know, it's hard to I think what you're talking about versus what the film actually showed is deeper, and I guess I'm not really helping, but I would sometimes you just don't know what people are responding to, but the toxic masculinity and all of that, those are very important issues. I'm really not helping.
Well, that's a
with
very
that.
challenging question,
Yeah.
but I agree that laughter means a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's a response, and it can come with different interpretations, with different subscripts, background stories. Maybe it's better than nothing. Like laughing at a situation is the first response. It's better than not giving any response, right?
Also
The
sometimes-
surprise effect, because we tend to laugh at things when we are surprised, we don't know what to do, and we just start laughing, which is kind of a nice transition, keeping us still in a positive mood rather than crying, right? And then all of a sudden we might start picking up and then getting into the conversation. I don't know, maybe laughter is another aspect, and that's the whole essence of this whole event, because I was so cautious about asking my students to produce comedy films on loneliness. It's one of you've done a very challenging job, and I think you are up there.
Right.
Because even in Hollywood, a lot of the great movies that come out these days, they are really drawing on the loneliness elements. And yet, since they don't have theories in their scripts, the movie starts great, and then you say, oh, loneliness, it's about loneliness, I want to watch this film. It's also, funny at the beginning. Gradually, it gets depressed. And then we see no resolution.
Right.
Just the message is, isn't that horrible that the world is lonely? And that's the message of the film of 2 hours. But in 8 minutes, in as short as 8 minutes, because of the plot that has to move with regards to the theory, you have given us some ways out that many of these movies probably do not provide. Do you agree, Francois?
I agree 100%. George Bernard Shaw said, get the mouths open with laughter and then shove the truth down there. And I think that's what you guys were able to do, because the mere fact that we're talking about it now means that it is a seed that was planted just visually and emotionally. So the fact that we're talking about it now means that it resonated on some level to more than just one of us. And I think you guys did just an amazing job. That's just one of the things. And if you go into a movie thinking that it's going to be like a rom-com, a romantic comedy, or, that you're just going to be laughing, sometimes that laughing, you find yourself laughing, wait, what am I laughing at? That's actually pretty serious. And so it's an involuntary thing that it can mean a lot of different things. But.
And I think the more we bring in the word loneliness in our vocabulary, in our daily interactions, the more likely that we will start thinking about it seriously and doing something about it seriously. And a great example is my son, Kutai. He was born into a family where loneliness research was part of everyday conversations. And at some point, after he started elementary school, he was coming some days, Daddy, I felt lonely today during the recess time, but then this happened, and then I've done this. So he's at that level because he was born into that environment. But I think as a society, we should move to a level where we should be very vigilant about loneliness and detect it whenever it's there, not only in us, but also in other people, and find ways to get over it as quickly as possible. So I think what we have created today is quite unique. And I want to name it so that it's recorded. I don't know where the camera is. I think in line with Actors Studio, today we have created a Scholars Studio, haven't we? Let's give a hand to everybody, first of all. Because of the format and the interactions that's been created, I've been really fascinated with the level of depth and creativity that came out with the ideas, drawing on a set of film projects that are, of course, creative. So now is the time to have a nice closure. Now let's move to the Oscar part. I would like to invite our long-term friend of this project, Professor Virginia Dixon, who wasn't even aware of the fact that I was going to invite her to present the award. Virginia, come on, is a long-time professor at Sacramento State University, and she teaches in the leadership program, and she's been a part of this festival project since the beginning. You want to say a few words before we get to the award ceremony?
Yeah. Thank you, Hakan. Welcome, everybody. And for 11 years, I think.
8 years.
8 years for this. But before this existed,
prior projects.
In a classroom on this campus, he was still doing this, right? We'll call that the prototype work. And I was part of the prototype work. I would come in from Ed Leadership and Policy Studies and review with students what they were doing. And I think when you were asking your question, it reminds me that something I do when I'm training school principals, essentially, as well as working with people in ed leadership positions who are out there trying to satisfy multiple audiences in the public, is, for me, I try to help give them tools to objectify something that is so very subjective. And all the subjectivity that is very nuanced in how people live or describe things can't always be sorted, in my opinion, by one human brain. And so the more I can give my grad students tools that help them learn, how do I communicate? What are the 4 styles I use to communicate when things are going well? What are the 4 styles I use to communicate when things are in adverse conditions? I give that to each of my grad students, and it is a very useful tool to help them see, I can't change what you're going to say, but I can perhaps adjust what I'm going to say or how I say it. So it's something I encourage you to consider doing as you look for refining your skill. So I want to congratulate Hakan on session 8. It's, you know, when you're innovative, it's a risk. And John Kennedy said it best.
It becomes a habit too.
Success has 100 parents, defeat is an orphan, right? And that's how it is. So I'm so pleased that all of you have had this chance to really implement something that is based on theoretical knowledge. But theory into practice is where the world happens.
So now I will have our commentators to announce the winner. And I will give this to Virginia.
And this is only for a little while, right? You only get this for a little while.
But we got certificates signed by our team. Okay.
And the winner is...
Team 4, 1 is The Loneliest Number, produced by Fifth Intelligence.
Okay, Fifth Intelligence, congratulations. And I know some of them had classes, so they had they had to leave early, but okay, so, and I would like to invite our panelists also here just to, why don't you just join us also? So let's take a little group picture. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'll be here then. Okay, so now I would like to invite all the students to stage so we can have a big group picture and then leave. And see you in the 9th Annual CBA Film Festival next year.